Have you ever been halfway up something and realized that the climb itself wasn't actually the hardest part? It was what happened along the way. So this past weekend, two separate hikes up Camelback Mountain revealed something deeper for two of us. And you are going to get to hear my very first guest today on Made Strong. Almost immediately after getting home, lessons showed up for both of us in parenting and relationships. Today, I'm sitting down with a close friend, mentor, business partner, talking about a mountain that we both literally climbed this past weekend, the adversity we didn't expect, and how those lessons immediately have followed us home. I am excited to welcome my dear friend Brandy Foss to the podcast. And when I was thinking about who my first guest would be, honestly, Brandy is always my biggest cheerleader, rooting for my rise, thinking me strong, and challenging me. And we're going to touch base on friendships today as well. Has definitely had some hard conversations with me, and I have had some hard conversations with her. And so we're going to share or shine a little bit of a light on why that topic has come up post climbing a mountain. Brandy, like I mentioned, she's a health professional. She's a mom of four. I always learn through her lessons of being a mom. And she's just someone I deeply respect for how she leads through every challenge. So we were both in Scottsdale this past weekend for a leadership incentive trip that we both earned. And we both climbed Camelback Mountain at completely different times. And so we're going to share our experiences here today. So, Brandy, my first question for you is when you think back on hiking Camelback, what moment or moments stand out to you most?
I had the opportunity of hiking it with two of my daughters. We went together. I thought it would be a great experience for our youngest, who turned 16 last week. So I knew one of the gifts I wanted to give her was an experience with the climb of Camelback Mountain, right? And really early on, as we were going up the very first incline, along the way there are different things that can help you. So this specific incline has a rail that you can hang on to, and for the most part, if you do not have the right gear with you, which that would be me, I did not have the right hiking gear, I had to hang on to the rail. And I let my daughters go in front of me on purpose. I think it was a protection. This was not my first time climbing Camelback. The last time I climbed it with my husband, and it was a complete different experience. He was my protector the last time. That's how I looked at it as I was climbing. He's the one who took those next steps. So for me, early on, I decided to go behind them just in case. As they climbed that first incline, they turned back, they looked at me, and they're like, "Mom, this is so different than what I expected. We don't have to go to the top. We can turn around." And I just giggled. And actually, they were pretty far up where I had to be a little bit louder and say, "You can do hard things," right? And as I said that, a lady was passing me and she said, "I love that you just shared that because you're exactly right. And I know you guys are going to make it to the top." And I'm like, "Absolutely." There was no doubt in my mind we weren't going to make it to the top. I early on shared with them that this was an experience and a journey. My first time that I climbed Camelback, there was an individual who was training for something. And we were talking about this last night as a family. I swear he went up in 20 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating. He was so fast, he lapped us multiple times. So we are a competitive family, and I wanted them to know that it wasn't about how fast we got there. It was about taking one step in front of another and learning lessons along the way. I think there were lots of lessons learned along the way, to the point of we had to keep our eye on the next marker. And I don't remember being markers the last time I climbed, but what I learned this time was there's 36 markers. And so every time we took a step and we passed a marker, we celebrated, right? And sometimes at those markers, we had to sit down and take a break and refuel and hydrate. And I think that's what was so important, right? I think one of the biggest moments that I loved was there was this Vietnam veteran who had all the gear. And I was so impressed that he was hiking. I could look back because my dad's a Vietnam vet. And so I knew this gentleman had to be in his 70s. And when he passed, I just smiled. He had his hat on and I thanked him for his service. And he passed us before we ever got to the top. He was coming back down. And by the time we even got to the bottom, he was going back up. And I stopped him. And I said, "Do you do this often?" And he said, "Yes, I do it 4 times a week." And I was like, "You inspire me." So along the way, not only did we, myself, Kennedy, and Aniston, have an experience, a journey as a mother and 2 daughters, but the camaraderie on that mountain was so spectacular. And we got to see people of all walks of life rooting for one another to get to the very top.
I love that. I hadn't heard your full story yet, so I've been really excited to dig into it. You said at the first incline, the girls were like, "We're done. We don't have to go all the way up." What is it that you think put their brain in that path with that first incline?
I think some fear set in, right? Early on, from the very beginning, Kennedy was saying,
Mm.
"This isn't what I was expecting." So I think a lot of times there's fear and expectations that can hold us back or stop us,
What do you
right?
think their expectations were?
The last mountain we went up was Pikes Peak. So how did we get there? We took a train. And
Mm.
so each mountaintop or each hike can look different, right? We were in Arizona, so there's a lot of desert. I knew that there were rocks, but to be honest with you, even the last time I climbed, I think there were hard moments. I remember one moment that I was a little nervous. There wasn't a lot of distance between being safe, and if one slip happened, it could look different. I didn't prep them. They had absolutely everything's at our fingertips right now. I do remember Kennedy saying something about rattlesnakes early on, and I giggled about it because at the end of the day, we could look up a lot of things, right? How many times have, for instance, the very first time I climbed Camelback, if and when I got off of Camelback and I read the signs, I was like, "Oh, I think if I would have read that, I don't think I would have ever went up." So I knew what to expect. And this hike was extreme. For me, I'm not the most fit person. What I learned on that hike is I'm probably fitter than I give myself credit. How often are we sabotaging ourselves or thinking something different when it's not true? For the girls, it wasn't important to get to the top. It was more important for me. I knew this was a life lesson I could teach them, that when things get hard or things look different, there's lessons along the way that I know from that experience they will take back and help them later in life. And one of them will be parenting, right? I know one day they're going to look back when they're a mama, when their kids don't want to do something, and that lesson's going to teach them, no, you can do hard things. Because I think sometimes we're living in a society that if it doesn't feel good, we shouldn't do it. That's not the answer. You got 2 individuals here right now that work hard, play harder. And a lot of times I am who I am today because I didn't let fear stop me and I didn't let pain stop me. I let the pains that I've walked through my entire life put me on purpose versus choosing to let them paralyze me. And I think that stories that are built upon pain can set you free, can help you achieve things more than you could ever imagine.
So I'm curious. I'm going to share a little bit of my experience going up the mountain, but I'm going to take this somewhere and I'm curious your thoughts on it. Brandy's talking about pain, but I think there's a difference between discomfort and true physical pain. In that mountain, there are 2 approaches that get you to the exact same destination. I thought I was taking a different direction up that mountain. I took the same one Brandy took. which happened to be the more upright trajectory where you're doing a lot more bouldering and climbing, which physically I have the muscle capacity and endurance capacity for, but I'm still dealing with side effects from my hip replacement. So it was physically very difficult for me because it hurt. It wasn't an enjoyable experience. When I got to the top, the euphoric dopamine and being able to see the views. But if I had to do it again and I self reflect on just where I am, I would take the other path today. I wouldn't take the same path for me right now. So I think there's an importance to understanding the difference between if you're in a state of true like injury, and I don't even mean physical injury. Sometimes we are just not in emotional states. Our nervous system is not in a state to be able to take on certain tasks. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I thought of you often on that hike. I don't even know if I would have known there was another side. I'm going to be honest with you. Because truth be told, you told me I should go to the other side. I suggest the other side. And so as I was climbing that steep mountain, the difference this time from last time was I think I had my head down more the last time. Ken and I talked about this last night. I knew he was my protector and he went first to guide me. And this time I had to take a different path on the same hike, but do it differently. For me, physically, it didn't affect me, but it affected me thinking about you because I know you and what you've been through. And I said to the girls, this was not for Jamie this time. I knew that. And so there's two things you can look at it, right? I think it's a mindset, and you have the mindset. You absolutely have the mindset. That's why you did it.
Right. I still accomplished it.
Knowing now what you accomplished, you still would have accomplished it on the other side. I didn't know the other side. So I think the next time we go out to Camelback, you and I maybe need to take the other side and experience the other side together.
Yeah.
Or experience the other side.
I think again, just speaking generally, that can everybody can apply it towards their life and their walk and their profession, but you and I are in a profession where we did walk first and now we lead other people. And so I think it's important to not expect people to always go the way that you went.
And I'm curious now, like you didn't tell me why I should go on the other side, but you suggested it very much to me. Like it was very loud that I should do the other side. I'm curious what made you decide to say, hey, Brandy, I think you should go the other side.
Because I think I want people to enjoy the climb. And that had such, it is such a physical trajectory that potentially, yes, you are fitter than you thought, but also thinking about your girls, I wanted you guys to be able to enjoy the climb and not just overcome something super difficult, but not ever want to do it again.
So that's interesting you say that because I'm not sure if they'd ever do it again. So that's a great perspective. So now we're going to have to go back out there and maybe we'll go as a family
Yeah.
and we do the other side together as a family. I don't know. I am a prayerful person. I was very clear. I think they did enjoy it and they accomplished something that wasn't a big deal to them as it was to me. But I just along the way was instilling different life lessons. But most importantly, you said it a while ago. Like even us climbing hundreds of people on the mountain climbing, we all had a different perspective, a different approach. We all had different gear. We all had different mindsets. And we all come from different walks of life. That's what I loved most, seeing that we all experienced it differently.
Yeah. I'm curious with your girls, what encouragement actually helped them to keep going? And how did you decide when to push versus when to pause?
I think there were some Holy Spirit moments along the way. I'm going to share that with you. There were moments that things happened that we had to pause and giggle, which gave us some rest. There was actually a lesson learned on that mountain that you probably wouldn't want to go there on a date in a new relationship. There were lessons learned about if you're going to go with a gentleman, how he should lead you. There were so many lessons on that mountain that I think that in those Holy Spirit moments was the perfect pause for us to reset. It wasn't about me leading them and doing it Brandy's way. Most of the time, Aniston went first. And then we would learn from her. There were times that I led. All three of us had different lessons along the way and rooted for each other in a different way. And it was just fun. It took us 2.5 hours.
To go up and down. It
Huh.
took us about an hour up and an hour down.
Okay, so you went a little faster than us.
Jared and I come from a CrossFit background, so everything's for time. And I was in a pain place where I just wanted to get it done.
We went a little bit slower and drank a lot of water. We had a lot of fun. At the end of the day, we all can reroute at different times and get to the same destination.
You guys had to accommodate for two other people. It was just Jared. At one point in the climb, I turned to him and I said, as we get older, you have got to stop expecting me to do like harder things than I'm physically capable of. Like, it's great when somebody believes more in you than potentially sometimes you do in yourself. In this case, like for longevity, for like enjoyment of the journey, but plus for longevity of me to be able to keep going long, I cannot do extremes consistently that I'm not prepared for, that my body's not. It ties over to any other arena of life. And he apologized. One more takeaway from the mountain, and we're going to transition to applying some of these mindsets of overcoming hard things in real life. But what is one thing that you hope that your girls take away from this experience?
I hope that they took away that comparison can be the thief. And it's not about the destination as much as it's about the journey and their personal experience, and that they can do hard things.
I think something as I'm transitioning here, it's also important because potentially if they were alone, they may not have kept going. And so the importance of having support.
Leaning in, yeah. I do think it would have looked different had they gone without me. I absolutely think they would have turned back around. Even when we got to marker 30, they're like, we don't have to go to the top. And I was like, are you kidding me? We're only 6 markers away. Let's go. Marker 30 was a pivotal moment for some reason. Might have been just another big incline, like a bunch of rocks, right? I don't remember the moment. It might have been the moment where when we got to the top, it probably was the moment I was dreading. I don't want to say I wasn't looking forward to it, but coming down was a different experience. That moment I was dreading or more nervous about was easy.
The down was different because it did not require as much muscle pump and the cardiovascular workout, but it still had its difficult moments, did it not? Going down?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, one slip going down is way different than the slip going up. Always go for it. What do you have to lose? Even if we would have turned back around at some point, we still went further. But we got to be cautious of what we're reading or what others would say. Because even you telling me, I think you should go to the other side, I didn't ask you why. I would have had a different thought process if I would have said, hey, Jamie, tell me more about why you're telling me to go to the other side. I felt you were protecting me. I knew that side of it. And I was like, no, I got this, Jamie. But I didn't know your side of the story either.
Yeah.
So if we would have known each other, it could have looked totally different.
I think it's important in our work, like knowing who you're taking up the mountain. And now you're saying, hindsight, if I would do it again, to have my girls want to do it again, you might have gone on the other side of the mountain.
They'll do it again.
But
They don't
not
have.
all the people that we bring to the table in our work can we motivate with our words. Sometimes we
Yeah,
don't
what
have that trust built with them, and sometimes they just do not have the skills. And we have to know that and read that about people and guide them a different way.
what a great perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Ask good questions. I ask a lot of questions. In this
Yeah.
particular case with my girls, I did ask questions along the way, but it was a non-negotiable. I have a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old. I'm like, if this 50-year-old can do it, this 16 and 20-year-old can do it.
I got back and pretty immediately encountered that when my kids was walking through a hard friend situation. As parents, I wish I could take care of it and endure the pain for her, but I can't take her pain away. The reason she's walking through a hard friend situation is because kids today, and I'm just going to speak from my perspective. I'm curious if you think it's similar in this generation of kids we're raising, like these teenagers. My daughter had a situation with a friend and she wanted to talk through it, and the friend wanted to avoid it. In the avoidance, she was told, I just need a break from you right now, which was very hurtful to her. And she's, I just want to have a conversation. This person felt texting her thoughts, her side of the story. My daughter wanted to address it through a conversation. She had words used against her for wanting a live conversation to address it. The reason she wanted a live conversation is because she values the friendship. I want, even this podcast, to potentially help young people to understand just because you are approached with something that's hard or challenging, avoidance is never the answer. And can you talk to me a little bit, Brandy, about having hard conversations? And can we talk about why you're willing to have hard conversations? Like, what is your perception, especially, let's say, a friendship dispute? What do you guide your girls with?
Absolutely a verbal conversation. At the end of the day, I believe we are living in a time where using the text form can, for me, because I'm such a direct person, texting somebody most often would not be the right thing. When you're talking, you can hear tone, you can hear heart, you can hear feelings, versus there's no feelings in a text. Communication is so important. It is a number one skill that we all need. I believe it's becoming lost. On multiple levels, it's being lost. Even interview situations, you can't get to know somebody by a recording, especially somebody who's extroverted. I'm an extrovert, obviously, but people drive me. If Jamie wanted me to answer questions, it would be a totally different podcast without her being here and it being live versus me sitting here recording Brandy and reading questions.
I'm very proud of my daughter for wanting to have hard conversations with people. Number one, because sometimes adults aren't willing to have hard conversations with people. So let's talk about what's happening on the other side. The other side, it makes me sad for because the people are in such fear in defense. And I think this goes back to something we learned a long time ago, Brandy, and it's that oftentimes we judge ourselves by our intention, but we judge other people on their behavior. Sometimes people do, I'll say my marriage. Let's say Jaron did something early on in our marriage that upset me. I used to be mad at him. And once I learned this, it changed everything. It was a slight shift in energy focus and it changed our relationship forever. If I started to look at him about his intention instead of looking at his behavior, I could think, did he mean to go, I'm going to piss Jamie off? I could logically go, no, he didn't do that to make me mad or to upset me. So then my shift goes, I'm not mad at him. I'm just mad it happened. It does shift something that changes the relationship and moves everything forward. Let's talk about people in difficult situations. Let's really think about the person on the other end. If Brandy said, Jamie, I need to have a hard conversation with you. I need to share my heart with you. Usually I know something heavy is coming. I can think, is Brandy's intention to nail me? Is Brandy's intention to attack me? I think it's important for us to pause, think that question, because I know Brandy's heart and her intention, and it's never to hurt me. And in this situation with my daughter, if that other person would have paused to think, is Addie's intention to attack me? Is it to harm me? Is it for her to tear me down or talk bad about me? They would 100%, they know that my daughter would never do that. And then have the hard conversation. So, yes, what's on your mind?
I think about when one of my daughters was in third grade, and I had a parent reach out to me, and I didn't believe what was said, but you don't know, right? So I asked for a meeting with the parents and the children. And on the way to that meeting, my daughter started crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "I'm scared." And I said, "Tell me more about why you're scared." I said, "Are you the one being honest?" And she said, "I am." And I said, "Listen, I have your back 100% of the time until that trust is broken." And so I bring this up because we went and we had this meeting, and my daughter wasn't in the wrong. There were more kids involved, and they were lying. And in that meeting, had I not called that meeting for the parents and children, it would have looked totally different. But because I chose to trust my daughter, because she knew I trusted her, it was okay to be scared. How scary is it to face your friends today? There was one of her and the other two who had the story. And so often, for me, relationships aren't something, relationships are everything. And I believe that true with Jamie. People brush things off or make up stories that aren't true. In order to get to the heart of it, really, hard conversations are important. We didn't go into that meeting that day to pounce on the parents or the children. We needed clarity. And I believe that was a defining moment for not only my daughter, but the parents and the other daughters. That lesson brought up so much. For me, I don't want superficial relationships. I know hurt people can hurt people. I understand that in one way, but I will always believe people aren't intentionally out to get people. I don't believe that, especially in my circle. And I believe iron can sharpen iron. And I have different skills and strengths than Jamie has. But man, if we can be love and light to one another and accept each other for our gifts, talents, and strengths, quite often our weaknesses become our superpowers and we can help one another. And so I'm all about being verbal. But here's the thing, I believe we've raised our children a little bit different. We are very open because at the end of the day, I'm not here to raise perfect children. I actually struggle to this day. Why are we living in a society that all of a sudden straight A's are having this high GPA? Y'all, I was probably more of a C student, right? And it was all the failures that I learned along the way that's created me to be who I am. And so when I think about our children today, we want our kids to be the best athletes. We want them to have the best grades. We want all these things. We're robbing them of their journey. And I have to remember my journey and my husband's journey and us coming together and creating such amazing children. But their journey is different than our journey. And so when I think about these hard things, I feel like nobody wants to walk through hard anymore. If it's easy, it's not worth getting because I believe everything worth getting, there's hard in it.
So, just to build off of that, it makes me sad for people who aren't willing to have hard conversations. A large percentage of people feel alone and feel isolated, and they're craving community and they're craving to be a part of something. But again, to have a thriving friendship, to have a thriving community of people means you also have to be willing to work through the hard with that community and those friends. Because I am sad for these people that my daughter is walking through the season of her life with, because if they aren't willing to address this with her, they're going to miss out on a really great friend. And the likelihood of them having really true, deep friends that last and stay and accomplishing, it's almost like they got halfway up the mountain, turned around. If they're not willing to go through the hard to get to the accomplishment, it makes me sad because I feel like they're not going to accomplish as much in their life as God has put inside them to do.
At the end of the day, I would be sad for my friends If they didn't allow me to be who I am in my awkwardness, in my quirkiness, in my strengths, in my weaknesses, like I would miss out on so much. It's a blessing that I got to meet Jamie and we got to grow a friendship in the way we got to. I got that opportunity because of her sister being one of my lifelong best friends. To this day, I still have four best friends from grade school that we still connect with. And I look at my four daughters and I wonder what that looks like. What is that going to look like for them?
Can I ask real quick, how do you own your mistakes and how do you ask for forgiveness? Because I think that is a skill people need to stretch.
How do I own it? If I've hurt somebody, whether I agree or disagree, their feelings are their feelings. So I own it and I apologize.
I think that you have a strength there. Can you speak to that? Is that strength that you know you're human and it's okay that humans make mistakes, that you do not have to be perfect? Where does that come from that you are able to own it and apologize?
I think where that strength comes from is none of us are perfect and we're not here. I know what my intention is and I know what my heart is. That's what I know. That doesn't mean if I hurt somebody's feelings, it could be that they were having a bad day and heard it completely different. But I come from a place of love and my heart. And I know who I am. I think the most important piece is if I wasn't allowed to express myself and be who God has created me to be, whether you agree or disagree with who I am or how I speak, I would be sad. I'd be sad that I have to tiptoe around my friends and not genuinely be the person that I'm supposed to be. I just sit here and think it is so important to be our authentic self. I am a little bit awkward and quirky. I'm going to be honest with you. I told Jamie, sometimes I wish I could sugarcoat some things, but that makes it more awkward because I'm not that good at being a sugarcoater. And so when you know somebody's heart and intention, I think it's important. But the other thing is, and you've helped me more even recently, this is a great question to ask yourself. What is the story I'm telling myself? Our brain is wired, and it is interesting what we do and the stories we tell ourselves that will stop us from moving forward.
You know who you are, you know what your intention is. And if you need to apologize or clarify the meaning, but people have to give you that space to allow you, because some people just hold on to the resentments and never.
That is not good, y'all. If you have some resentment going on right now, I'm going to pray that you ask for forgiveness. And if it's really towards somebody, to have a brave conversation is an act of love. I am not somebody who wants superficial relationship. If we are going to love and love big, we got to get it out. So if there's some story that we've told ourselves, it's not fair to the other person to hold back. And there's ways that you can go about that. Some people don't even know. Like I've had people hurt my feelings. Again, I go back to I don't think they're intentional of doing it. So having that brave conversation releases, but then we become closer to that person.
Yeah.
And it's okay to agree to disagree.
Sometimes people show you who they are and you need to believe them. Not every person is meant for every season.
Yeah,
Sometimes we do have to let go to allow God to provide space for other people who are going to be your people. So I'm going to read just a caption I had on a post because it was so heavy on my heart yesterday, the last couple of days since being home. I said, being a real friend is not about vibes, convenience, or who feels good all the time. This whole podcast started around something that doesn't necessarily feel good. And I'm just being obedient to continue to show up and make this podcast. I have zero idea and expectations of what it's supposed to be. Brandy, thanks for trusting me with that today. Real friendship takes courage. It means responding instead of disappearing. It means talking directly instead of talking around or about someone. It means being willing to sit in discomfort because the relationship matters. Hard conversations are not disrespectful, avoidances. If someone wants to talk things through with you, that is not drama. That is care, that is effort, that is maturity. Especially for teenagers navigating friendships in today's culture, this matters. Ask yourself honestly, are you a good friend? Were you a good friend in that situation? And could you grow here? Because character is built in moments like this. Brandy, I just thank you for being on today. Strength isn't built by avoiding hard things. It's built by staying present in them, on mountains, in parenting, in friendships. If this episode stirred something in you, I want to hear from you. Send me one of your questions or situations you guys are wrestling with right now. Parenting, relationships, health, life. I am going to be answering some listener questions in an upcoming episode of Made Strong. You are not alone on this climb. So hang on, and we will see you in the next episode. Keep climbing.